How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Superman. That's right, Superman is finally out, directed by James Gunn, the first official movie in the DCU, starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, Eddie Gathegi, sorry if I mispronounced that last name, Nathan Fillion, Isabella Merced, and in this movie, it's been a few years since Superman has been around, and after getting involved in a conflict between two countries, there's a lot of questions about the Man of Steel, and Lex Luthor is looking to make Superman look bad, going to great lengths. Also, in this movie, we have Crypto the Super Dog making his first live action movie appearance. So, I remember a couple years ago when they announced that DC was going to reboot itself because the DCEU, some things worked, some things didn't. Ultimately, it was going nowhere, and after the failed success of Black Adam, James Gunn came in as DC film president, decided to reboot everything, recast Superman, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, and go in a completely new direction that I think so far has worked. Creature Commandos, those was pretty solid, and I was really hyped for Superman because I grew up watching Superman the animated series, reading some comics. One of the first comics I read with Superman was The Death of Superman, and just overall, I grew up more with DC than Marvel. I've always enjoyed Marvel, but it was really more DC I was into from the comics I did have that I read to the early movies that I saw, like Batman '89, Superman 1978, Batman Returns. The DCAU played a big role in that with Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Superman the Animated Series, Static Shock. Just always grew up loving DC, being more into DC and being more invested into DC, especially with the Justice League cartoon that came out in 2001. That was probably the one show that I'd always watch the night the new episode would premiere. That's how invested I was with DC even as a kid. And I enjoyed Superman 1978. Love Christopher Reeve as Superman. Man, Man of Steel was actually the first Superman movie I saw in theaters, and I know that movie gets polarizing. There's a mixed response to it. I've grown to love it more over time. I always enjoyed it since I saw it in theaters. Some things I still disagree with what the movie did, but there's certain things that I've kind of drawn back with criticism, particularly the third act where the destruction of Metropolis is happening. I used to be very critical of it. Nowadays, I don't mind it so much, especially because this movie, especially with this movie having a destruction of Metropolis sequence as well. Minor spoiler, by the way, I forgot to say that, but yeah, there's a lot of destruction in the third act with Metropolis. But that's been a criticism of Man of Steel that has died down with me. It's just been other stuff. Then Batman vs Superman came out, and I think that's where things were going downhill. And even though I love the Snyder cut of Justice League, it was the Josh Whedon cut that was shown in theaters, and the box office did poorly, and so they didn't know what they wanted to do with Superman. And when it looked like Henry Cavill was coming back, almost a David Cornsweat, but when Henry Cavill looked like he was coming back for a face-off with The Rock's Black Adam didn't do so well, and so we got our reboot. And I was really looking forward to this. This was my most anticipated movie of the year. I've always enjoyed James Gunn as a director. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I love the Suicide Squad. That's one of my favorite DC EU movies. Love Peacemaker. I prefer Peacemaker over all the MCU shows. Maybe Loki might be up there with Peacemaker. I feel like maybe a little bit better, but overall, Peacemaker was a solid show. I even enjoy the holiday special. So, a lot's wrong with this movie because Superman, like, we need more Superman movies out there. So, this could determine if we get more Superman movies, what's going to happen with the DCU. Are we going to get movies beyond the movies that are coming out next year? Like, Supergirl is still going to come out next year. Clayface is probably still going to come out. But the other projects in the DCU that have been announced that haven't gotten official directors yet or actors for those projects could be determined if they're going to go forward based on this movie. Like, DC needs something more than just Batman. I love Batman. I love Matt Reeves' Batman from 2022, but we need more. DC has such a big library of characters that I want to see more of. And we also got to see more of that in this movie with Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, and the Guy Gardner Green Lantern. So, what do I think of Superman overall? Because I see some people loving this movie. I see some people, while they don't hate the movie, they do feel disappointed with the movie. Overall, I thought this was a great movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie, and I'll get into the few flaws I do have with this movie. But I think overall, as a superhero movie, as the first movie in a new universe, as a Superman movie, I think this movie did what it was supposed to do overall, and as far as tone, as far as pacing, as far as getting the characters right. Like David Corn said as Superman, he doesn't just look the part. He does feel like Superman. And he is a flawed Superman at the same time, which is something I've wanted to see. A Superman that's not perfect, that's not OP, because that's always been a critical with Superman, that he's overpowered. But here, Superman is given challenges, not just physical challenges with Ultraman and the Engineer, but just mental challenges as well. And I love what he's being put through in this movie, because it feels like in film outside of the Snyder movies, particularly with Zod, also Zod in the Christopher Reeve movies, but also Doomsday from Batman vs Superman. We don't really see Superman have physical threats that can match up with him in a lot of movies. I hope that's something we see more of the DCU. Like Lex Luthor is usually the common villain, and if not him, it's usually Zod. So I like that we got more physical threats to Superman in this movie. Also, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. While I like Amy Adams as an actress, I never bought into her Lois Lane. Here I do buy into her Lois Lane. She feels like Lois Lane. She's a tough reporter. Will go to great lengths to get that scoop and expose it. Also, her chemistry with David Corn Sweat works way better, I feel like, than the Henry Cavill and Amy Adams chemistry. And while I love Henry Cavill as Superman, I don't know, I can't say for certain which Superman I prefer yet. I will say, though, Christopher Reeve, I think, is still slightly the best Superman out of the three of them. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed the Lois Lane Superman aspect. One thing I will say, though, with David Cornsweet, it's the Clark Kent aspect, and he's great as Clark Kent as well. But I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of Clark Kent in this movie, or as much as I would have liked to have seen. And this isn't just a criticism of the Superman movie. I feel like this is a criticism of superhero movies more so recently. I don't know if this is because the Batman started this trend where we can have great superhero movies where it focuses 85% on the character in full costume and the other 15% on their alter ego, which is something that I've noticed also from Marvel as well in recent years. And don't get me wrong, we go into the superhero movies to see the superheroes and see them in action, but it's their alter egos that bring in a lot of character development and give a lot of emotional moments. To me, the most emotional moment in this movie was when Clark Kent is talking to Jonathan Kent, and it just has this great moment between the two of them. And by the way, the Jonathan and Martha Kent aspect of the movie, I would have liked to have seen more of that as well. Although when it's in the movie, it's a strong emotional aspect of the movie. But I feel like these are just I'm getting my criticisms out of the way as I'm going through this, which are few criticisms. But yeah, the Clark Kent aspect I feel like could have been stronger. I did like the stuff in the Daily Planet as well, whether it's Clark Kent in there or just Lois Lane or Jimmy Olsen. And yes, Jimmy Olsen is an actual character in this movie and feels like an actual character. They did Jimmy Olsen right. Loved his story arc in this movie. As well, it feels like, for the most part, any character, regardless of how big their role was, did contribute to this movie. That also goes with the Justice Gang. Uh, Eddie Gathig, sorry if I mispronounced that last name. I'm pretty sure I got it right before. But Eddie as Mr. Terrific. I love Mr. Terrific in this movie. Contributed a lot to the plot as well as helping Superman and Lois at a certain point in the movie. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner provides the humor of this movie. I got the most laughs out of his character, but he looks great as Guy Gardner, even if the haircut looks ugly. And I'll get to the humor right away. I think people are over exaggerating the humor in this movie. I feel like, as far as James Gunn superhero movies go, this had the least amount of humor in there. So I think people are over exaggerating the amount of humor in this movie, especially compared to Guardians of the Galaxy and even the Suicide Squad. Isabella Merced as Hawk Girl of the Justice Gang, she probably has the least to do in the movie, but I think overall she does a very good job. Hopefully, we get to see more of her in other projects because I do feel like she was the weakest link of the Justice Gang. But let's get to Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. To me, this was the best film version of Lex Luthor. And I feel like this is the Lex Luthor that they got right perfectly well. Because while I love Gene Hackman as an actor, and rest in peace, he passed away earlier this year, and I did enjoy his version of Lex Luthor, I never loved his version of Lex Luthor. Never cared for Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor as well. To me, it was the Lex Luthor in Superman the Animated Series that was the perfect Lex Luthor, voiced by Clancy Brown, and also in Justice League the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited. And I feel like the best live action Lex Luthor so far before Nicholas Hoult was from Smallville and Michael Rosenbaum. He did a great job in the role. But this Lex, like, he feels purely evil. This is a purely evil Lex Luthor that hates Superman, that will go to great lengths to expose and defeat Superman. And it feels like his plan is working at times, and you buy more into his plan than you did with Jesse Eisenberg's plan in Batman vs Superman, or even the plan of Lex Luthor in Superman 1978. Overall, though, this Lex works really well in this movie. I want to see more of the Nicholas Hoult version of Lex Luthor. Action wise, I feel like the action here, like anyone that's complaining about the action in this movie doesn't, I don't think, understands Superman action. This is way more action than Superman Returns. Definitely way more than the Christopher Reeve movies. The third act definitely has that Man of Steel vibe at times, which I don't mind because Man of Steel nailed the action so well. I still think Zack Snyder does slow-mo action better than James Gunn did or any other director. But overall, the action did not disappoint with Superman. The special effects also didn't disappoint as well. And Crypto, I got to get into Crypto. Lovable, entertaining dog. Also, not a perfect dog as well. He's hard to train, but he comes and saves Superman's neck many times in this movie. By the way, people are complaining that Superman loses fights and has to be saved a few times. I don't mind that aspect. Superman's not perfect. He's powerful, but he's not perfect. um, how Jor-El and Lara are handled in this movie, because there is a moment in the movie where we learn about their true intentions of sending Superman to Earth beyond just saving him from Krypton's destruction. I feel like this is going to be on par with how Jonathan Kent was handled in Man of Steel for many fans. I know for me, it's definitely something that I am conflicted on, because on one hand, it adds to Superman's dilemma and it does bring questions for Superman. At the same time, and also it does like add some interesting theories and is a great way to twist people's perception of Superman. But at the same time, it does, for fans of those characters specifically or fans of true lore, it will rub off on them the wrong way. This is an aspect that I am mixed on, because on one hand it adds to the plot, but on the other hand, it's gonna divide some fans. I feel like this might be the most divisive decision of the movie overall. There are some action sequences also in here that will remind you of classic James Gunn action from other movies. For example, there's an action sequence with Mr. Terrific that I was like, oh, this reminds me of some of Yondu's action sequences in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The score, I love how the score was handled. It was a great tribute to John Williams, and also had an emotional aspect to the movie as well. Fortress of Solitude looks great. LexCorp looks great. The Daily Planet looks great. The settings look great. The conflict of this movie that Superman's involved in, I think, works very well as well. There are a couple flying sequences in the movie that I will say, while I think the cinematography and special effects were great, a couple of flying sequences. I obviously there was a flying sequence in the trailers that fans criticized and James Gunn did remove. There's still a few that don't look all that perfect, that do look a bit off. But overall, with Superman 2025, I feel like this is a Superman movie that we needed. It's not as good as Superman 1978. As someone who thinks Man of Steel is underrated, and by the way, my criticisms of Man of Steel in this review wasn't to take a jab at it, because I still enjoy that movie, but it's just showing certain things that this movie did handle better than Man of Steel. I do think it's better than Man of Steel, but not like a whole lot better. But then again, as someone who does enjoy Man of Steel is higher on my superhero rankings list than some people. But to me, I feel like this is probably the second best superhero movie. Maybe over time, when I rewatch this more, maybe it might move up from Superman 1978. But I think Superman 1978 still did certain things better, particularly with how Clark Kent himself was handled. But it does, but at the same time, this movie has a better Lex Luthor and better action. But yeah, overall, with Superman 2025, or Superman directed by James Gunn, since there's two Superman man labeled movies, I think this was a great movie. As far as the James Gunn superhero movies go, I still prefer Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I prefer this slightly over the Suicide Squad. Definitely prefer this over Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But yeah, Superman 2005, it was an entertaining movie. I enjoyed it a lot. It definitely felt like a Justice League or Justice League Unlimited episode, which to me is high praise because that cartoon was excellent. And I know I think James Gunn has said that the DCAU has been like a blueprint for them. If that's the case, it's an excellent blueprint, and hopefully they keep following that blueprint because it did feel like a extended Justice League episode done right. And I can't wait to see more David Cornsweet as Superman, as Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. I can't wait to see more of Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Haunt Girl, Lex Luthor. I also can't wait to see what they do with Supergirl. Supergirl does appear in this movie for like a brief moment. Wasn't big on how she was handled in the movie, but brief cameo. But I am looking forward to seeing what Supergirl is going to be like next year, especially because Jason Momoa is going to be Lobo in the movie, which is a perfect casting. But yeah, overall, I'm going to give Superman an A. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I highly recommend you go check it out. And I know Fantastic Four comes out in a couple of weeks. I know people are going to pit this against Fantastic Four and say, oh, Superman's way better than Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is way better than Superman. I can't wait for Fantastic Four. I don't want to pit these movies together. As long as Fantastic Four is excellent, whether it's better than Superman or not, I just want to see a good Fantastic Four movie. Much like Superman, Fantastic Four is long overdue to have not just another movie, but where Superman has at least a few good movies out there, we have yet to get a good Fantastic Four movie. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the DCU. I can't wait to see what James Gunn does. Now, do I want to see James Gunn direct another Superman movie? While I definitely love what he did with Superman, I also wouldn't be opposed to someone else as long as they keep the same theme that James Gunn has this movie. I see James Gunn directing the next Superman movie. Anyways, I also see him directing other DCU projects, movies, and shows. So, but it kind of depends on what he wants to prioritize and what he feels he can make good in this universe. I think The Authority would definitely be something I would like to see him direct because The Authority was a confirmed movie. Can't wait to see what he does with that. But yeah, Superman. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what's your favorite Superman movie? Favorite Superman actor? Favorite Lex Luthor? Favorite Lois Lane? Let me know in the comments down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that loves Superman, that's looking forward to Superman in the DCU. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.